First of all, he came to me and was like, I still love you, Ania. He don't want to step up.
But is it true that after you broke up, you had the older child, you all were still sleeping together? Because that's why we're here today, right?
Turns out that Miss Petty already has an older...
Don't distract her from hearing the testimony about what you were talking about to her when she was already pregnant and the way you was lying back and forth so that you could keep having sex with two women. I'm trying to understand what day of the week is your child over at another man's Christmas function that neither one of you all are saying you know?
Desperate times called for desperate measures. The plaintiff was in court to prove he didn't father baby Nyasia. However, the crack was that he got slammed with something else by the baby's mama, and that made him desperate for answers.
You say the defendant went behind your back and opened a child support case, meaning you are the father of her 4-month-old daughter. You're hoping today's results will prove you are not the biological father before the child support order goes into effect. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
2 women at the same time? Ugh, this guy was going places. How do people pull this off, man? I'd never. However, it all blew up in his face pretty soon afterward, as they landed in the paternity court.
Is it your position, Mr. Hammond, that both women were aware that you were sleeping with him at the same exact time and they were comfortable with that?
Kiera wasn't
Keep
aware.
it 100, as you would say.
100. Kiera was aware, wasn't aware, she was.
I was aware.
You feel me?
Okay. When he told me he was going to get money from her, I said, go ahead, I'm not going to give you my money, you need to.
Uh-oh, Mr. Hammond did not just say that. The audacity! That slip of the tongue better have consequences. I mean, where do these people get the confidence to pull stuff like that? He got on my nerves, and I'm pretty sure on the judges as well. Let's take a look.
You were both pregnant at the same time.
Right.
While this young woman was pregnant with your child,
And
you were still having sex with Miss James.
Yeah, that's what I said. Well, we all know that because they're, kind of close. So that's why I say, of course, because it's close.
Oh, man! You don't get to appear in the court of Judge Lauren Lake and behave like that, and you think you can get away with it? Heck no! Didn't I tell you this guy was in for it? Well, prepare to be schooled by the judge.
Right.
Don't distract her from hearing the testimony that Miss James is gonna tell about what you were talking about to her when she was already pregnant and the way you was lying back and forth so that you could keep having sex with 2 women and then get 2 women pregnant potentially at the same time.
What kind of mind-boggling relationships are people having these days? How I miss simple times. Moving on, when the judge can't make sense of things happening here, what chance do we have? How long do you think these guys can keep this up, though?
You had sex with 2 different men.
Right.
How are you so certain it's Mr. Hammond's baby? It's really now, we at a 50-50 split right now.
He's old. His sperm is not strong.
Oh, the other man is an older man.
Yeah.
How old?
60.
Drama with a capital D. It just kept getting nowhere. On the bright side, at least Judge Lake had a moment to lay back and have some water. You gotta keep yourself hydrated amid the chaos, am I right?
I asked her, is that Chris's baby? She said, no, that's not his baby. I don't want nothing to do with you guys. And you guys could have a happy life and I have nothing else to say to you guys.
I did tell her that.
She did say that, and we blocked each other.
Why is it any of her business, period? My
I'm the
baby,
fiance.
him, he don't have nothing to do.
It is my business.
Hey, let's get some order. I'm done with this.
That's gotta be one huge rock the fiance was living under. She had no clue her fiance, Mr. Hammond, was up to all kinds of naughty shenanigans behind her back. Where was the sacred love and respect from the betrothal contract, man?
I am not gonna be able to change this dynamic between the 2 of you.
Right.
I can't change that.
Right.
It's a chemistry I don't even think you guys understand. Really. Because you keep calling, she keeps coming.
School was in session for the engaged couple and the estranged sweetheart. These guys were in desperate need of some lessons of a lifetime. And who better to deliver them than our very own Judge Lake? Here it goes.
You all are in a cycle. I can see the exchange in the courtroom.
No,
you
the
just
cycle
need a
is being
capital D
broken.
for denial
Sure,
on your
it is.
chest.
It's gonna be
You
broken.
are in denial because you get yourself so worked up that it's all gonna be Miss James' fault and she wants him and she's doing this. But at the end of the day, this is very real.
After making a mockery of loyalty and engagement, finally we reached the end of the court proceedings. What was left were the DNA results, the one thing to clarify this paternity doubt. So, let's hear it.
Mr. Hammond, you are not the father.
That's fine.
You are not the father.
Talk about being in between a rock and a hard place. The former being the husband and the latter the lover. Well, that's what happened to Miss Johnson when the plaintiff brought her to court and claimed baby Briley was his. The Johnsons, however, didn't buy that.
Now, Mr. Anderson, you argue that Mr. Johnson is forcing his wife to keep the child from you.
Yes, ma'am.
You believe 4-year-old Briley is your daughter.
I do.
Well, if her husband was out having fun, why couldn't she? That motto prompted Miss Johnson to throw caution to the wind. She did, and the rest was history. Mr. Anderson sincerely believed the child to be his. The only hurdle was this person.
Your position was your husband left you to go be with another woman. Now, is that the reason you were separated, or this happened during the separation?
That happened before the separation. Mr. Anderson, he always treated me like queen. We had instant connection.
You were with another woman.
But Your Honor, she left me to go back to him.
The same old charade of he's a liar, she's a liar coming right up. Baby mama called the defendant a liar, and he wasn't too happy about it. Obviously. Whew, what a pickle. Who was telling the truth, and who was making a fool out of the other?
Well, really, at that time, yeah, I was cool with it because, like I said, I got a family, and I was cool with it for a minute,
For a minute.
Yeah, I was cool with it. I was cool, but then after Briley.
What is he lying about specifically?
Well, about us still talking. I was
Are
pregnant.
you saying that because you don't want Brad to know we still talk?
I'm saying that because that's true.
Another round of varied narratives followed up pretty soon. Seemed like these guys didn't know how to stick to one claim at one time. And how could they, since they couldn't stick one person at a time? Shame, people.
You said you were cool with that, and you just stepped back because you had a family.
When I heard that she was here in this world, then I had a change of heart. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna call and check on her and see how she doing.
Were you calling out of duty, or were you calling out of curiosity, like, I want to see this baby and see if it looks like me?
I want to see the baby.
You want to see the baby?
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Johnson didn't believe a word that came out of the plaintiff's mouth. Even though Mr. Anderson had his older son as his witness to strongly back up his claim, still, baby mama vehemently denied this, even at the cost of being established as a bad mother.
Are you suggesting to me that your child was over his house with his family at a Christmas function and you didn't know
Without
about
my
it?
knowledge.
You didn't know about it.
Ma'am.
Time for some reality checks for the married couple, brought to them by our very own Judge Lake. She served them right back and more. Time for some much-needed parenting lessons for the whole group.
I'm trying to understand what day of the week is your child over at another man's Christmas function that neither one of you all are saying you know.
That's because it ain't his child, because he ain't there with her. He just sleep there. He don't do nothing with her.
This circus had continued long enough. Before the situation got way out of control, the judge was ready for the results. And frankly, so were we. There had been no concrete evidence, and the only thing that ruled paternity court was those DNA results.
Her biological father is Mr. Anderson.
So,
Your Honor, may I see my little sister? May I see my little sister?
You would think these guys would go their merry way afterward. Nope. Sadly, that didn't happen. The husband and the lover looked ready to turn the court into their backyard then and there, and Lauren Lake wouldn't have it.
2 men are willing to step up to the plate and make sure she has father that she needs and deserves. However, this is her biological father. This is the man she understands is her daddy. Are you prepared to figure this out for her? Are you just saying you want Mr. Anderson to just walk away? Because I hate to tell you, I don't think he's walking.
I think you will.
Barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen? Nope, just pregnant in the paternity court. Miss Barrett was in desperate need of a father for her unborn baby. The problem was that she didn't know who fathered it. Yep, the defendant, on the other hand, refused every claim.
You say you believe Mr. Mullinex is also responsible for these expenses because he may be the father. Mr. Mullinex, you say you refuse to pay anything for an unborn child that isn't yours.
Yes, Your Honor.
You deny paternity and claim Ms. Barrett had sex with you, her ex-boyfriend, and several other men.
Yes, ma'am.
Wow, this baby mama took the weekly planning to the next level. She had her hands full. I mean, gotta hand it to her. She followed her weekly appointments very diligently. We could learn a thing or two from her.
I was sleeping with Mr. Mullinex Thursday through Monday, and sleeping with my ex-boyfriend roughly Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
On a weekly schedule?
Yes.
Now, how did this love triangle come to be? That was the question. As it turned out, Mr. Mullinex wasn't a saint either. While leaving the bed of his ex-wife, bam! He fell straight into the bed of Miss Barrett. You can't make this stuff up.
I walked in and he introduced me to her, and I could tell from the first statement she made that she was a complete airhead. He took me in the back bedroom.
Wait a minute. You're talking about Miss Barrett?
Yes, ma'am.
How did this progress? And you're married?
Well, me and my wife separated, and after we separated, that's when I began my relationship with her.
Okay.
I went over to her house. The first time I went over there, within 20 minutes, we were in the bedroom.
Miss Barrett had been a naughty girl around town, and according to the baby daddy, her reputation preceded her. A busy lady indeed, which was obvious given her full schedule. However, she denied everything thrown at her.
She was good at things like that. I mean, that's pretty much what led me to believe that it'd be easy.
I need you to use respectful language in the courtroom. But Miss Barrett,
I apologize.
were you getting text messages from multiple men asking you for sexual favors and encounters?
No,
like that?
no,
Yes,
it was
ma'am,
not.
she was.
It was not sexual encounters.
The good old conception calendar was out in the open, and would you look at that? That is one symmetrical calendar. Looked like Miss Barrett was in for some harsh truths from the judge. About time, if I may say so myself. We all saw that coming from a mile away.
Just a month ago, he was telling me that we were going to be together and that we were going to be a family. And just last week, we just had sex last week, and he was telling me that he wanted to be a
With
family.
Mr.
No, that's not
Molinex?
true.
Yes.
A month ago, I went to her house. I got drunk. I made a mistake. I went over there. And yeah, we ended up having sex. But, I
No.
mean, I told her what she wanted to hear just to get what I wanted, but I do not
So
want to be
wait
with
a
her.
minute.
Was the baby mama just that naive? Or was she just insatiable? Hard to say which was which. It was times like these that made us question everything. It's easy to make a mess of things, but to clean that up takes effort. A kind that these guys lacked evidently.
Why is it the exact same days each week and then the weekend?
Mr. Molinex had a job time, so therefore he would come over on the weekends and leave on Monday nights.
So
He's at
then you'd be
work.
with your...
My boyfriend.
And where would your boyfriend think you were on the weekend?
He wasn't around. He was just out hanging out with his friends and stuff like that.
And this went on for an entire month?
Yeah.
Mr. Molinex didn't come alone. His girlfriend was there to support him while poor Miss Barrett stood on the side, all pregnant and alone. A sorrowful sight. Moving on, the girlfriend was called up on the podium. However, her sight brought tears to the baby mama's eyes.
She's really just another notch in his belt. Like she's nobody
Well, I mean,
special.
look, you don't know what goes on between our relationship. For the past 6 months, I don't care what you're saying. You need to let me speak for a second.
Okay, and you know the for a
Well,
fact he's been
I don't
over
give
at the
a damn. We
house.
slept
Do
with
you
you
not?
one
Okay,
time.
let's get some order.
Caught between the girlfriend and the lover, Mr. Molinex had gone quiet all of a sudden, and the judge called him out on this. After co-creating all this ruckus, he doesn't get to remain tight-lipped now. However, the guy soon turned out to be one cold-hearted jerk of a human. Yeesh!
We did not have sex a week ago. It's been a month ago, and I was drunk when it happened. I mean, that's a mistake I made
And
when I
who's
was
to say that
drinking.
I'm
You
the
know, I know
only
there's no
person?
excuse for what I did. I mean, the truth comes out no matter what. But the fact of the matter is, I do not want to be with her. I told her what she wanted to do.
And Miss Barrett, are you saying that he did tell you that you all were going to be together?
Yes, he did.
You'd better watch out when the judge gets mad. But you'd better run away when she gets mad and disappointed, all rolled into one. And that's what Miss Barrett made her feel eventually. A learning lesson for the soon-to-be baby mama coming right up.
You have given yourself away. You stand at this podium by yourself, going to doctor's appointments by yourself, after you done gave away a month's worth of days and nights with two men that are not, will not, or cannot be a part of it and share it with you.
Seriously, man? Baby daddy just couldn't seem to resist the allure of this woman. Go preach about it. You said you didn't want anything to do with Miss Barrett, yet there you were at her doorstep again. Not cool.
After an entire month of Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, and Mondays, and last month's slip up, suddenly now last week you went over there and just went over there to talk.
Yes, ma'am.
One after another, this case took a revolting turn. About the time the proceedings came to an end, and aren't we all glad? A baby's fate was on the line who wasn't even born yet. Let's put an end to the wait and get to the results.
Mr. Molinex, you are the father.
Kudos to the baby mama. She got a father for her unborn baby. Now, how he would turn out to be, though, was still a mystery. While he was swimming in the post-shock waves of the results, he forgot he had a woman carrying his child. Judge Lake ripped him a new one then and there.
And at least see if she's okay and she's carrying your child over there crying. Step over there. Now, she's been by herself. She done stood up here by herself. She has admitted her secrets, her shame, and basically told more than most women in this world would ever admit to. He manipulates you through your mind, and you manipulate him with your maternity. Master manipulation going on here. That's why nobody's happy, nobody's satisfied, nobody's comfortable, nobody's committed, and that's why the children out here left with blank birth certificates.
A long-term relationship was crumbling. A baby's fate was on the line. Miss Lovett claimed she was 100% positive that the defendant was her baby daddy. Mr. Hilton, calm as a cucumber, denied the possibility. No shock there.
He's a deadbeat dad. He doesn't take care of the kids at all. I lost my house, my car. I'm financially, I'm just destroyed because he just want to handle his responsibilities.
Mr. Hilton knows a strong allegation.
I'm not finna take a baby that's not mine. I love my kids, Your Honor. I got 4 other kids, but Your Honor, I'm not finna do that. That's impossible.
According to the mama, the family had been devastated because of how cruel the defendant had been to the baby. Not cool, man. Every kid deserves a father. However, baby daddy had strong reasons to suspect paternity.
You have 4 other kids together.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Your Honor.
But you so strongly believe Winter is not your biological child, you said you're not taking care of her.
No, ma'am, Your Honor.
I can see that this really hurts you, Miss Lovett.
Well, if baby daddy wasn't backing down, neither was baby mama. She brought out the big guns. The conception calendar was out to reveal all its naughty little secrets. November was a merry time for these guys. Yup, all kinds of fun was happening along with Thanksgiving.
What I'm trying to understand, Mr. Hilton, did you have sex with Miss Lovett pretty much the entire month of November up until Thanksgiving?
Unprotected.
No, ma'am.
You did?
Possible, no, ma'am.
You don't remember it that
Nah,
way?
I don't remember that.
What do you remember?
I remember the last time was November the 15th. That's the last time, Your Honor.
November the 15th in your mind.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hilton wasn't buying whatever the baby mama was testifying to. Be it the calendar or even the conception calculator, he was dead set on denying the claim. Now, wait till you hear what made him so sure of it. Oh, how funny that was.
Just to see like if it's mine or not. See if it looked like me or similar to my other kids, and I don't see it, so I just don't believe it. You know, because she done lied before plenty of times. She lied plenty.
Really? I lied?
Look at my nose. I got a fat nose. Look at it. Come on now. I got slanted eyes. That baby eyes is big.
Leave it to Lauren Lake to figure out what was happening, even in the midst of this chaos. That's why she's the one who wears the coat and sits up there. She earned it. Now, watch how she explained the thought process of these men.
Y'all really not as strong
We
as us.
always make.
But I'm saying you all make all your mistakes, but then when it goes down and then we make our mistake, it's number 1, something you can never get over after it. And then number 2, when it comes with a new baby, he still hasn't even forgiven you for the fact that you slept with the guy. That alone for him
And we wasn't even together. That had nothing to do with him.
So we know by now that these two share 4 other babies. Given that, it was safe to assume Mr. Hilton must be on their birth certificates. But guess what happened afterward? Man, what did this woman even see in this guy to begin with?
You ain't on nothing.
All right.
You don't take accountability for nothing. You don't take responsibility for nothing.
See, look at that head. Look at his head. You look like the baby got a receive.
That's his baby. That's his baby. Look at him.
I don't
Look
even
at
have
them side by
I don't
side.
even have no bond
They
with
look
the
just
baby. When I
alike.
hold the baby cry. Like my other kids.
How would you
baby
have
don't
a
cry.
bond if
They
you're
go
not
right to
around?
daddy.
How
They
you
go
gonna
right to
have a
daddy.
bond if you're never around?
It appeared the baby mama was a fighter, so she kept on fighting. She presented another piece of evidence to the court, and the defendant just shook his head. Seemed to me he was only on one mission: deny everything the woman says. And that made Judge Lake blow the heck up. If I were there, I would have cried, man.
Do you have any idea what that's gonna do to them emotionally? Why wasn't I worth it enough? I wasn't worth a signature?
It's her fault, you know.
No, it ain't her fault.
Wow.
It's not her fault. You know
have
whose
to
fault
show
it is?
up. You
You
have
be
to show
quiet
up.
when I'm talking. I done been around the block so many times, I own the block.
After thoroughly schooling these guys, court was ready for the results. Even with the evidence, the case seemed to be going all over the place. But the results were fact, and nothing else held a candle to it. Here we go.
It has been determined by this court. Mr. Hilton, you are not the father.
Told you.
Miss Hall was unsure whom she wanted as a life partner, and that landed her in more than one bed, and now a paternity dilemma was hanging over her head. The plaintiff wanted to get some real answers, and today's results were gonna give him those.
Mr. Elliott, you say you do not believe you are the father of Ms. Hall's son because at the time he was conceived, Ms. Hall was in a relationship with another man and later gave her child his last name.
Yes, ma'am.
Interesting start to the case. Apparently, the baby mama had been chummy with just one guy initially. Enter Mr. Elliott, and she threw mortals out the window and began a love affair with the both of them. Check this out.
After about 8 years, they started fighting and stuff a lot, and she came to me one day after they split up and we started talking. That's how it started from there. And the doubts about Noah is that when we started talking, we started to get together and we wanted the relationship. Well, after we'd get into an argument and fight, she'd go back to his house every time.
Miss Hall just couldn't pick one guy. Indecisive much? I thought I was indecisive when I couldn't pick what to eat. But there she was, in a real Sophie's choice. Moreover, she wasn't shy to tell what she was getting from these fellas. Yeesh.
I love them both. It was hard. One gave me great sex. The other one gave me a great relationship and the support I needed for my kids. I needed it all from him, and then Max also couldn't give me that. The other guy.
I wasn't really financially stable at the time. That's how I feel like she really went back to him every time because his family is well off. I was poor growing up.
The woman had the gall to justify going back to her ex. Yikes. Judge Lake had enough of her justification that the plaintiff pushed her. Yup, and now she was about to get a reality check in the middle of the court.
I gotta get to this pushing part because what is it about the arguing or what he's doing that's pushing you? I mean, it sounds like it's just an excuse.
No, it's not an excuse, Your Honor. I can't be with a guy that's going to argue with me.
Well, I don't think you can.
Well, Mr. Elliott believed they were going to be a happy family now that a baby was in the picture. Alas, that was just a dream. Because apparently, the poor guy wasn't even allowed to come to the hospital.
And so at what point did you then decide that Noah was Max's son?
I slept with both of them in the same week. Monday I slept with one, and then Friday I slept with another.
Say about 3 months into the pregnancy, she broke up.
I was confused. I didn't know who the father was.
Tune in for another mind-numbing confession from the baby mama. Man, she needs to be taught some serious lessons on loyalty and commitment. For real. And to stop getting into such messes. It's life, Missy, not your playground. Have some dignity for the love of God.
When's the last time you were with your ex?
About a month ago.
She told me she wasn't.
And
she hasn't been with
him. Pregnant again. So I also could be pregnant again in the same situation that I'm in now, where both guys could be the dad.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
I believe Judge Lake reached her limit with our defendant over here. Unshockingly so. She made a seesaw of relationships and was truly well on her way to making one out of motherhood as well. I mean, come on. You gotta know when it's time to let go. Oh, I was a poet. Didn't even know it. Cringy much?
The issue is, Ms. Hall, is when you begin to bring children into the world. Children. It's not just you riding the seesaw anymore. They're on the seesaw, and that's not fair for a child.
I was confused. I didn't know what I wanted at the time.
Up till now, the ex had only been good at one thing in this whole cheating debacle. But it turns out, this guy was a good-for-nothing kind of fella. Yup, you heard that right. He had some thoughts about baby Noah.
He wants to be around him when it's good for him, but when it's good for me, he don't want to part with Noah. When I was with him last time, he told me I could either make my son shut up or he would. And I'm sorry, I'm not gonna be with no guy that's gonna tell me to make my son shut up. I'm not.
There's no reason to talk to any child like that.
This woman needs to learn when to shut up, especially in front of Judge Lake. Because when you say things like that in paternity court, you better believe you're about to get served by Judge Lauren Lake.
He could have found a ride up there. I'm sorry, but if I was a guy and I wanted to see my baby so bad, I'd make sure I was there.
But if you're a guy who's not sure if the baby is yours and the other guy that your girlfriend runs back to all the time is there and he decided to sign the birth certificate and your girl told the other guy that the baby was theirs, maybe you might just stay home.
Miss Hall had played on the seesaw ride long enough. The players just kept adding up, and it went nowhere. Time to put an end to it all and roll out the truth of whether baby Noah had a family or not. Let's hear it.
When it comes to 10-month-old Noah Groom, Mr. Elliott, you are not Noah's father.
This defendant believed that Miss Prowell had a certain reputation and claimed he didn't father the baby being pinned on him. Well, we've heard that one before. Baby mama, on the other hand, had a few skeletons in her closet just waiting to come out.
Miss Prowell, now you're asking the court to award you $475 in back child care expenses should one of 3 men be identified as your baby's biological father.
Yes, Your Honor.
Your 6-week-old baby has 3 potential fathers.
Yes, Your Honor.
Including the defendant, Mr. Morton.
Mr. Morton thought he and his girl were one against the whole world. What a sweet thought, right? Well, little did he know other forces were at work too. Literally. The guy narrated the incident that started this whole cheating fiasco.
So I go into the sandwich shop. The guy, I think his name is Mr. Gaddis. He was going to hand me the bag of bread. Before he did so, he asked me, was I involved with Miss Prowell? Now, I told him yes. You know, we had a little thing going on at the time. It wasn't very, very serious. Well, he was like, well,
You're listening
I
to
hope
other
you don't
people.
get too serious with her
He doesn't-
because
Your Honor,
I have already
He doesn't even know this
slept with
person.
her.
There was a party, and there was alcohol. What could go wrong? Well, apparently a lot of things. While it was fun for the mommy to get down and dirty at the party, she didn't keep the hard consequences in mind.
I still had feelings for Desmond, and I still wanted to try to work it out, but that was more of a one-time thing.
So it's okay for you to do that, right?
Please do not cut
So
me off.
if I
Miss
these are
Prowell,
actually-
when you want to make a relationship work, having sex in the bathroom at a party is not really the way to do it.
And that's what I told her.
The cheating parade doesn't stop here. Nope, not at all. Apparently, Miss Prowell wasn't done doing things out of spite. She held no regard for what her impulsive attitude might cost her in the future. And we all know how that went.
You recognize that this is 3 wrongs, though.
Yes, Your Honor.
He did wrong, but then you got him back, Mr.
Bye.
Gaddis.
Yes, Your Honor.
Threefold.
And then Mr. Laurie.
Yes,
so,
Your Honor.
wrong.
Man, oh man. Was that a sandwich shop or a hookup spot? Whether the sandwich business was going well or not, baby mama sure was having fun on the job. Employee of the month, right? Well, moving on to a special appearance in the court.
So you were sleeping with 3 co-workers from the sandwich shop.
Yes, Your Honor.
You contacted 2 of them to say you were pregnant, but you never contacted him.
Yes, Your Honor. But I do not want him to be my child's father.
Well, you can't control that, can you?
Possibly
You
could
act
be
like
the
you can pick.
father.
No one is talking to you.
Wow.
I didn't know you could pick.
Miss Prowell had 3 guys at her disposal, and yet only 1 out of the 3 baby daddies was there. It appeared the baby mama was sitting up on her high horse dictating to everyone. Well, she better be prepared because school was now in session.
Now you got a young man that's passionate about knowing
Your
whether
Honor.
he fathered a child. No. You gonna hear this. Now you sitting up here grilling him, asking him, does he know how to change a diaper? None of you all are that far out of diapers. You don't have any business. Now you question him, is he good with kids and he's this? Now all of a sudden you selected.
Baby mama didn't think that highly of Mr. Eric. He was good enough to have fun with, but not good enough to be a father. Wow, the audacity! Case in point, the plaintiff only knew how to make a rainbow calendar.
He's not really like this. He's not genuine. He could care less.
Really? How would you know that if you never told him?
Is Mr. Gaddis, is he compassionate? Is Mr. Gaddis
He's not even here, so why?
No, but you
what I
know him,
was
right?
just
Since you
about to
don't know
say.
me, but you know him, so is Mr. How about
He's
Mr. Morton?
here?
Is Mr. Morton compassionate? Like, since I'm
No,
just
all
like
he
the devil,
cares about
you know?
is his video games.
Fasten your seatbelts, people. Judge Lake was about to holler some sense in this baby mama's head. It was about time that this teen mom got a reality check, and we know who's phenomenal at giving those.
When all all of them can say they have doubt about whether or not they're the father. Who doesn't have doubt about whether they're the mother?
I do, Your Honor.
Exactly, and that's what teen girls don't think about when you're laying around with little boys because you think you cute, up at parties, having a ball, turned up, and now you turn out by yourself.
The fun that the plaintiff had with the defendant and these guys put baby Ethan's fate at stake. Now, his life was just one big question mark, and it was high time to put him out of his misery. Time for the results.
Mr. Gaddis is not the father. It has been determined by this court the father is Mr. Morton.
You sitting up here, you taking her side.
Come on.
You ain't even let me get a word in.
Stand up. Jerome, just give him a minute. Give him a minute.
Anyone who knows my brother knows he wasn't even a marrying type. He was with a number of women, at least 9. She wasn't even in the top 10.
Carla has had enough with her husband. He's messed up her life, and now things have gotten so bad that now she's suing him. But first, she's on a mission to prove that Mr. Baker is indeed the biological father of her 19-year-old daughter, Voinisha. Only a DNA test can help them now.
I've been dealing with him for 22 years now. When we got together this last time, I feel like he kind of punishing me and my daughter. You know,
punishing you how?
Like the way he treats us. He's not the man that he should be for the family. We had a DNA for my first daughter. It was 22 years ago, and he took care of her for a whole year.
All the secrets keep coming out in court, and Carla confesses the real reason Mr. Baker's been acting so horrible with her and her daughter. She claims he uses bad words for her daughter, but turns out Carla wasn't all that honest with him about the paternity of her first child. And for a year, Mr. Baker thought that he was the real father.
How long ago did you get married?
4 years.
Okay, and you have always told him he's Voinisha's father.
Well, when she was 5, I went to him to his mother's house, and I said, Michael, I seen some resemblance. So I went to him and I said, Michael, Mr. Baker, I think we need to do a paternity test.
No wonder the poor man isn't so trusting of his wife. In the beginning, he was the best father ever to Carla's first daughter. But when the truth came out, it really hurt him. So now, he thinks that Carla's not being honest about Voinisha either.
I think Voinisha is your daughter. Do you remember that?
I don't remember as far as like saying.
You don't remember cussing me out in front of your mom?
In front of my mom?
And your sister and her friends. Yes, yes.
You don't remember that, sir?
I mean, I might have did it. I'm not gonna say I didn't.
He remember.
But I'm not gonna say I remember, Your Honor. Because for the simple fact is, if we've already been this way, why wouldn't you come to me and say, let's have a paternity test if it was like that?
But Carla's pretty stubborn and won't own up to her own mistakes. Mr. Baker reveals that things weren't as simple as she's telling them, because the time she was pregnant with Voinisha, she'd been sleeping around with other men.
She said that it could be a possibility that 2 other guys that she's involved with could be the father of Miss Curl.
You did admit to him that there were 2 other potential fathers.
Yes, ma'am.
So as you tell him to step up and get the DNA test, did you ever test any of the other men?
No.
Even Judge Lauren is pretty tired of these 2 constantly bickering and then blaming each other. They've got a teenage daughter on their hands, and it's taking a huge toll on her. The poor girl's sitting in court, wondering if the man she's been calling father really is her dad.
Were you intimate with the other men?
Yes, ma'am. It was because of the conception and then the resemblance. You know, when she was 10 years old, we got back into a relationship. At that time, he started seeing things. Look at her eyes, look at her nose, look at her, you know, it was always to her walk.
The judge realizes how these 2 have it out for each other. Their marriage is on the line. But more than that, it's about the feelings of their daughter, Voinisha, who's had to grow up torn between choosing one of them. And the only way to get these 2 to stop arguing so much is to reveal the results.
Mr. Baker, you are not her father.
You're my daughter no matter what. Okay, I'm sorry.
Things always take a dark turn when you end up with a greedy, pathological liar. Miss Thompson has a mission on her hands, and it's to defend her late brother's honor against Miss Lee, the 19-year-old woman claiming Kevin fathered her 3-month-old baby girl, Nevaeh.
My brother was 100% positive that he was not the father. He stated that Miss Lee was a money-hungry, compulsive liar.
Really?
Yes. Basically, she was just one of the ladies that he was sleeping with at the time, and she claimed to be pregnant by him.
But he did not believe that.
No.
The biggest proof in Miss Thompson's arsenal is that Kevin himself confided in her that Miss Lee had been harassing him constantly about getting pregnant because of him. But Kevin was 100% firm on the fact that he wasn't the baby's father.
We did what we did. After that, I cleaned up, and after I cleaned up, I threw up, and my body reacted and started changing automatically. And I went to the store the next day, and I got 2 pregnancy tests, and they both came positive. And he said, "Oh, that's not my baby. That's not my baby."
Exactly.
Because he had multiple women.
Even Judge Lauren is absolutely shocked for a moment. How can Miss Lee think that she got pregnant so quickly? Didn't she stop to consider that the reason she threw up after sleeping with Kevin was because she had way too much to drink?
This isn't the first time that she claimed to be pregnant by him. Also, this is his
that's
word.
A lie. That's a lie. That's a lie. I ain't never. I don't want to be pregnant. You hear me? I ain't never walked around talking about. Look how little I am. Come on now.
All right, hold on. You're saying this is the second time
from his.
What do you mean?
Miss Thompson claims that she knew her brother, and she would rather believe what he told her than listen to this compulsive liar. But Miss Lee feels like his family had always been against them, that they were just outsiders who had no idea about her true relationship with Kevin.
What was the nature of your relationship?
We were together for 6 years, love.
If you call me love one more time.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's a habit.
Trust me, I get it, but you got to break it now.
Yes, you are.
Okay, you were together for 6 years.
Yes.
You weren't committed because you're saying he had other girls.
We were on up and downs, on and off.
On and off.
Correct.
So you also dated other people?
No.
The most heartbreaking moment for Miss Thompson came right after she buried Kevin. She got a phone call telling her that someone had broken into Kevin's house. When she went there, she was shocked to see Miss Lee and her friend stealing Kevin's stuff.
He would have came to us and just said, "Hey, I want something to remember him by," because we know he had, multiple women who probably wanted a piece of him.
Why would I do that in the way y'all said?
Like I said, we didn't know you at that time.
You still don't know.
Exactly.
You think you
I know nothing of you.
You're exactly right.
But the most brutal thing to ever happen to Kevin's family was when Miss Lee has the audacity to call them and demand that some of Kevin's property and money should be given to her baby daughter. It wasn't even confirmed Kevin was the father. Yet here she was, already causing trouble.
Okay, the day after the baby was born, she called another family member, not my mom, and asked her for his social security number. So that was the second time that she's asked for the social security number.
And you're asking for the social security number for what?
I asked one time, and so my baby can have some benefits, so she can have what she needs.
It's pretty clear that Kevin's family wants nothing to do with this woman. They're heartbroken over a loss already, and they cannot deal with Miss Lee's conniving ways. Whereas Miss Lee seems to want financial security for her baby. What's the truth?
Nevaeh Harris is related to Miss Thompson.
That's okay. Well, you still don't need them, baby. You don't need them.
They say that third time's the charm, and today, Miss Austin's going to find out if it's going to work out for her. She's made her third appearance in paternity court, and once more, guess who she's dragged along? It's none other than Mr. Wallace and Miss Roberts.
So last time you were standing on the defendant's side with Roniel.
Yes,
Mr. Wallace. Mr. Wallace, you back with Miss Roberts.
Yes, ma'am.
But you still going back and forth between the two women because she's pregnant now and the baby could potentially be yours?
Yes.
So, what's the not-so-happy occasion this time? Well, it seems like 9-month-old Roniel doesn't really have a father yet. Mr. Wallace doesn't believe himself to be the father, but the thing that strikes the most is how he starts cursing at Miss Austin. Judge Lauren has to give him a good scolding.
Last time we was here, everything started out okay, but we all knew that wasn't gonna last long. Roniel Wallace was still bouncing back from me and Kendrick. I had enrolled in school, but I never did go because I had got pregnant once again with Roniel, and she got pregnant with her baby, with her son. And as you can see now, once again, I'm pregnant again.
Apparently, it's Mr. Wallace who really cannot keep it in his pants. He wants the best of both worlds. And here, it's going back and forth between Miss Austin and Miss Roberts. Even though the paternity case is about their second child, turns out Mr. Wallace has Miss Austin pregnant now again.
Why is there a doubt then, Mr. Wallace, as to whether or not her child is your child if you've been having babies with both of these women back and forth all this time?
I had installed, it was like spyware on her phone. They would duplicate her text messages and call log and send a copy to my email.
Once an altercation starts brewing, Judge Lauren has to step in and try to proceed things in a courtly way. She asks Miss Austin if she had been going behind Mr. Wallace's back and sleeping around. Miss Austin, dignified, says that she would never do such a thing. And they can have a lie detector if Mr. Wallace doesn't believe her.
You lay down with everybody who you talk to, because that's what you do.
You and the Lord know you a slut.
No, you're
Hold on.
You're a slut. You're a
Mr.
slut.
Wallace,
You're a
you
slut.
remember from the
You're a
last time
slut.
you were here,
I don't-
we are going to speak to women respectfully in the courtroom. You can, but do it respectfully. So you believe she was sleeping around?
For the second time, Judge Lauren has to scold Mr. Wallace about his language. Boy, does this man have a big mouth. Suddenly, things start getting heated between Miss Austin and Miss Roberts when the former accuses her of enabling Mr. Wallace to go cheat on her. They end up taking Miss Roberts out of the court.
Are you admitting that you also had a relationship with somebody else during the time?
No, I wouldn't even call it a relationship.
It was just someone else you were seeing.
Yeah, because I was hurt by trying to get back to Aunt Rangel, things that he had done to me.
At the end of the day, you all can see now that two wrongs never make a right. They make more wrong.
Judge Lauren tries to knock a little sense into Miss Austin. Turns out even if Miss Austin wasn't in a physical relationship with other men when she got pregnant, she did talk to plenty of them behind Mr. Wallace's back. No wonder Mr. Wallace ended up having so many doubts about their second child's paternity.
So you feel like these similarities are not compelling enough?
No, you can't just go off looks. I'm going off her actions.
You couldn't forgive her. You all couldn't work through this. Instead, you just went to stay with Miss Roberts.
That's false.
The apartment that I have now is because I moved in because of Rangel. Because of Rangel. Rangel left me to go be with Miss Roberts.
Miss Austin reaches a new low in the court. She ends up becoming emotional over how Mr. Wallace keeps walking out of their lives. After all, it's her and her babies in the equation, but Mr. Wallace thinks she's just putting on a show. Only the truth can give these two a good answer.
It has been determined by this court. Mr. Wallace, you are Ronell's father.
Mr. Patterson isn't just hurt, he's also very angry because Miss Knight duped him into signing the birth certificate of 4-year-old DeMarcus. And suddenly, out of the blue, she's now claiming that this boy's father happens to be another man.
Since he came out the womb, since he entered this world, when the doctor first, held him up and finally gave him to him, I witnessed him just completely quit crying and looked me dead in my eyes. And that's when, at that moment, I knew I became someone's father. So at that moment, like all the doubts that we had before, I just knew like they were just out the window and just, it was gonna leave us a happy family, but
it didn't happen that way.
Not exactly.
Looks like both of these have a completely different story to tell. Throw back to when Miss Knight first found out that she's pregnant. She remembers confiding in Mr. Patterson that it's possible that he might not be the reason behind her growing belly. What does Mr. Patterson have to say?
Every day since then, DeMarcus ended up cheating on me within the time we were together, and I ended up leaving with Ladarius, with the alleged father, and basically we didn't work out at all. So I called DeMarcus to let him know, hey, I could be pregnant by Ladarius and you, and DeMarcus was like, well, I want to be with you.
So when Miss Knight leaves the house, she doesn't contact Mr. Patterson for a whole 2 months. It's like she vanished into thin air. On top of that, Mr. Patterson's grandmother warns him that he's dealing with a fast and loose woman. He better be careful, because she'll slip through him.
We ended up having protected sex that night, and then we ran out of condoms, and while we were doing it, I told him to go ahead and get me pregnant. That's what I called DeMarcus and let DeMarcus know. I'm pregnant right now, and it's a possibility that it's Ladarius' baby or your baby. DeMarcus told me to come home.
So you got back together with Mr. Patterson.
Because me and Ladarius were like oil and water, and we could not do it.
Well, that's just an awful lot of detail for a courtroom to handle. But the point is, Miss Knight believes that Mr. Patterson knew right from the beginning that the child could be another man's. So why on earth is he causing so much chaos right now?
His name is gonna be DeMarcus Latarius Patterson Jr., and I don't care what y'all gotta say, and that's what it was.
But if you know the real truth, and you know that he might not be the biological father, why give in to the name and name this child after him, because knowing that there's a possibility?
I was in love with him. We were together all the time. I mean, he demanded it, that's what he wanted. He denied the DNA test.
Miss Knight reveals a confession. In her heart, she's always prayed the baby belonged to Mr. Patterson. Between the other man and Mr. Patterson, the latter was a true-bred gentleman. And what woman would want to give up on that?
When I asked DeMarcus to do something, he will. When I asked, but the only reason why he stopped doing the things, like he used to come in and just do it without me having to ask. But because I chose to allow Felicia and Ladarius in his life, DeMarcus told me I'm gonna go ahead and take a step back and let Ladarius step in.
I ain't say that now.
Yes, you did.
If there's a fight that can tear apart a couple, then it's definitely this one. Things take a really twisted turn when Miss Knight reveals who's her godmother, and it's none other than the other guy's mother. The audacity of Miss Knight to betray Mr. Patterson like this.
And so you said Miss Sigler is your godmother.
Right.
So the other possible father is your god brother?
Right.
Oh.
Ladarius.
Oh, you making this look bad.
Lord.
The ruthless part is how Miss Knight let the other guy's family spend time with baby DeMarcus. The father could be either of the two men. How does Miss Knight look at herself in the mirror? But a baby can't have two fathers, biologically I mean, and only the results can reveal the real daddy here.
The biological father is Mr. Sigler. What do you feel right now?
Hurt. Could have been avoided.
It could have been avoided.
I love that little boy right there. I know he's gonna be happy. You bring him out right now, he's gonna run straight to me.
My relatives told my ex that he was the father.
You told Mr. Lewis that he was, but did you tell your ex that he was as well?
No, I didn't.
Take me off child support, baby.
This is not a joke. It's nothing to dance about. It's nothing to laugh about. Now you should be ashamed of yourself, not sitting around dancing.
In this episode of who is obviously the father or not the father in paternity court, Miss Smith appears in court uncertain about her 4-month-old son's paternity due to a miscalculation during her pregnancy. Her ex-boyfriend and her fiancé, Mr. Booker, are the potential fathers. However, doubts and detective work have left Mr. Booker questioning the evidence.
Miss Smith, you are here in court today because you claim a miscalculation during your pregnancy has left you unsure about the paternity of your 4-month-old son, Lamontre. Now today you hope to determine whether your ex-boyfriend or the defendant, Mr. Booker, fathered your child.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Booker hilariously admits to having morning conversations with Miss Smith, where he sometimes can't decipher what's being said. However, confusion arises due to a miscalculation during Miss Smith's pregnancy, leading her to believe her ex-boyfriend could be the father. She sought medical advice from 3 different doctors, adding to the suspense of this gripping paternity case.
Talk to me about this miscalculation.
I went to 3 different doctors and they told me, well, yeah, you're about 8 or 9 weeks pregnant, and they did it by the chart. So that led back to my ex. And then that next week I went and I got a blood test done, and they said that just about the same thing, 8 or 9 weeks, and my due date was April 9th.
Miss Smith reveals a baffling mix-up during her pregnancy, with different doctors providing conflicting due dates, one corresponding with the time with Mr. Booker. The suspense intensifies. The ultrasound adds to the confusion, leaving the court and audience on the edge of their seats. The uncertainty surrounding the due dates adds an unexpected twist to this enthralling paternity.
This is where it gets confusing. I was stating that me and Mr. Brooker had sex August on the 14th, and then that's when I went to the doctor again on the 24th, and they gave me a date of May 13th. And at that time, I'm like, that corresponds with the time me and him having sex.
In this riveting episode, Dr. Gator sheds light on the perplexing situation of conflicting due dates. Miss Smith's irregular menstrual cycle caused a discrepancy in the estimated due dates, leading to confusion in determining the father. With expert testimony, the court delves deeper into the complexities of pregnancy calculations, the audience at the edge of their seats.
Have you reviewed the paperwork we submitted to you, and how can that happen, and why does that happen?
It actually happens more often than you would think. At Miss Smith's first visit, she basically was given a potential due date of April the 9th, and that was based off of her last menstrual period of July the 3rd.
During this emotional exchange, Miss Smith reveals her conversation with Mr. Booker about the possible paternity, and he expressed both excitement and sadness at the prospect of being a father. Despite the uncertainty, Mr. Booker was determined to be supportive and attend the initial doctor's appointments.
He was the father, at least a strong potential, right?
Right.
So what were you telling him?
Well, I'll let him know up front that, Trey could possibly be the father, but he was really upset because it would have been his first child, and that would have just made him happy. But he said that if whatever happens, he want to be there and he want to be supportive.
The at-home test results shockingly show 0 probability of paternity for Mr. Booker. Miss Smith Smith, on the other hand, questions the accuracy of the test, considering her son was born prematurely and the nurse advised against it. Both parents expressed their love and concern for the child's well-being, emphasizing the importance of knowing the truth.
Probability of paternity, 0. What did you think then?
Baby.
You did?
Yes, ma'am.
If you say you don't believe this test was accurate?
I don't believe that because I feel like he was born early, advises not to do it. So that's why I don't believe that it's accurate.
In the emotional moment on paternity court, the truth is finally unveiled, sending shockwaves through the room. Mr. Booker's face betrays a mix of surprise and anticipation as the test results are disclosed, while Miss Smith nervously grips her seat. The outcome isn't what they expected, but their commitment to face it together is evident.
Mr. Brooker, you are not his father. I'm sorry to have to deliver that news.
It's okay. I'm still gonna be there.
Get ready for the most intense and shocking moment on paternity court. Miss Adams urgently presents her son, Mr. Adams, via satellite from Flint, Michigan, where he faces potential arrest for child support issues. They aim to prove he's not the father of the defendant's 3-year-old son to keep him out of jail.
Ms. Williams, you say Mr. Adams is indeed your baby's biological father, and you argue his legal issues are his own fault because he never stepped up for his son.
Yes, Your Honor.
As tensions rise in the courtroom, the truth unfolds about Miss Adams' pregnancy and her ex-boyfriend's involvement. The paternity test results are in, and the moment of truth approaches. Will it confirm Mr. Adams as the father, or shatter his hopes of proving otherwise? Brace yourself for the answer of if or if not, he's the father.
Pregnant. I didn't mention him about the baby until I found out it wasn't my ex.
When you got pregnant, you didn't even include Mr. Adams in this equation.
No, I didn't.
You thought it was your ex's. And
Yes,
your ex
yes, I
said,
did.
well, it's mine too, and you all went through this whole process, but then you
Yes.
had a test, it was not your ex's. So immediately then you said it was Mr. Adams.
Yes.
As the tension rises, Miss Williams denies ever telling Miss Adams that Mr. Adams was not the father. However, as they dig deeper into the timeline, doubts emerge. Judge Lake highlights the complexities of the situation, leaving Miss Adams doubtful. The courtroom is on edge as the truth continues to unfold.
It was my ex at the time because I was still messing with my ex. That's what the agreement was between me and my ex at the time.
So you said it's not his.
Yes.
But you understand why this could make her doubtful.
Yes, I do.
Witnessing the courtroom drama unfold, Miss Williams takes a stand to better herself for the child, earning applause from the audience. However, Miss Adams doubts her intentions as conflicting statements emerge about the paternity. Miss Williams claims it was just a possibility, but Mr. Adams firmly believes she previously said the baby wasn't his.
Was it your understanding that you may be the father or that you were the father?
Your Honor, after she had her ex-boyfriend tested, she basically was trying to come at me like I was the father.
That's a lie. I said possibility.
She said it was a strong possibility.
You didn't believe that?
No.
Mr. Adams reveals that he was declared the father by default and placed on child support without a DNA test. Miss Adams claims she made the claims, but Miss Williams denies knowledge of the test. As evidence is shown, tensions escalate and the arrears pile up. The court must uncover the truth to resolve this contentious situation.
At the beginning of this year, I started receiving paperwork telling me that I had to make payments of $99 per month for a child that I haven't even been tested for yet.
They said she were in default. She never appeared and she left
I'm not about to keep going through this with you. I told you I didn't
I
know nothing
have
about
papers right here, Your Honor.
I didn't
Show
know
me the
nothing about
paperwork.
In the case of Adams v. Williams, the moment of truth has arrived. The question of whether Mr. Adams is the father of 3-year-old John Jones looms over everyone. The tension is palpable as the verdict is about to be revealed. Will he be responsible enough if it turns out that he is the father?
Mr. Adams is not the father.
Take me off child support, baby.
You done come to the wrong courtroom clowning. This is not a joke. It's nothing to dance about. It's nothing to laugh about. Now, you should be ashamed of yourself, not sitting around dancing.
The most shocking moment on paternity court where it's obvious who is not the father. Miss Curtis confronts her mother, Miss Hall, in court, alleging that she kept the truth about her biological father hidden for 14 years. A potential father is present, but the truth remains uncertain. secrets are exposed, and a family's future hangs in the balance.
I always felt like I was adopted. My father, he never really showed me the affection, the love at all.
Your Honor, yes, I did not tell my daughter at a young age about who her father was. Simply one, I was a young girl. I was pregnant at the age of 15.
Tensions rise as Miss Curtis confronts her mother, Miss Hall, about the hidden truth. Miss Hall confesses she planned to tell Abril about her father at 16, but life intervened. Emotions run high as Miss Curtis yearns to know her father's identity. Will the truth finally be unveiled, or will this family's secret continue to keep them apart?
The time that I set forth for her was at the age of 16.
At the age of 16?
I was the one who took care of you, raised you.
You raised me, but I didn't have a father.
It did not matter whether you had a father or not, because I was the mother. I was the one that was supporting you, keeping a roof over your head, and making sure that you went to school and you got the education that you needed.
Miss Curtis tearfully expresses her heartbreak of missing the father-daughter dance, while Judge Lake emphasizes its significance. The truth behind her father figure unravels as Miss Hall's guilt surfaces. The courtroom eagerly awaits the identity of Miss Curtis's real father, creating an emotional and suspenseful moment.
You gotta listen to your daughter because she's telling you what she feels. This was an event that everybody I knew got to go to. It's called the father-daughter dance, and when she said it, my heart dropped to my feet because I've been to the father-daughter dance. I could only imagine everybody getting ready at school and chattering and talking about the father-daughter dance.
The moment of truth arrives as Miss Hall denies receiving the letter from Kirk, the potential biological father. With emotions running high, Judge Lake unveils the contents of the letter, revealing Kirk's willingness to be the father Miss Curtis needs. Miss Hall feels deceived, and Miss Curtis expresses frustration at the situation.
He does state he's willing to be the father she needs and deserves, and it's signed Kirk. And Your Honor, I know you may not understand how I feel about this right here, but that's where I feel like I was deceived and crossed because I had my time that I had set aside to do the right thing.
In a heartfelt moment, Miss Curtis reveals the letters exchanged with her father while he was in prison, expressing her hope for a stronger bond upon his release. However, disappointment sets in as he fails to fulfill the promises made in those letters. The tension escalates as the audience sympathizes with Miss Curtis, eagerly waiting for the truth to unfold.
You got a letter from him?
Yes. He wanted to know little things about me so he can get to know me through the letters. He promised me when he come home, he'll do things for me that he's never done. When he got home, he didn't spend time with me.
In an electrifying moment, the court reveals Miss Curtis's father, leaving the audience in suspense. The heartfelt emotions and applause fill the room as the truth unfolds. Tears of joy and laughter embrace this newfound revelation, while the significance of truth is highlighted by Judge Lake.
Mr. Whitaker, you are her father. Mr. Whitaker, Miss Curtis, how you feel, Miss Curtis?
I feel really good.
In the most obvious "you are not the father" moment on paternity court, Miss Johnson is certain that Mr. Lewis is the father of Josiah. However, doubts arise due to false rumors and an ex-boyfriend's claims of potential paternity. They reconnect on Facebook after being friends in middle school, and when Miss Johnson becomes pregnant, the paternity mystery unfolds.
Miss Johnson, you claim you have no doubts that Mr. Lewis is the father of your 6-month-old daughter, Josiah. Now, Mr. Lewis, you and your mother say it's not only the rumors that have caused you to doubt, but also an ex-boyfriend of Miss Johnson's who claims he might also be the father.
Yes. Mr. Lewis recalls the heart-wrenching conversation when Miss Johnson revealed her pregnancy. Overwhelmed with mixed emotions, he broke down in tears, reflecting his joy and fear at the prospect of becoming a father. The weight of responsibility and uncertainty consumed him, yet he remained determined to face this life-altering situation with courage and love.
She called me and told me that she was pregnant, and she told me, and I was like, so how do you know you're pregnant? And she said that she took the test, and I was like, okay.
So when your son came home and you talked to him about it, how did you feel?
He said, Mom, there's something I need to tell you. And I was like, well, what is it? And he said, you know, Miss Johnson's pregnant. She said, I'm the father.
Amidst family turmoil and external doubts, Miss Johnson bravely stood by her belief in Mr. Lewis as the father. Despite negative influences, she kept reassuring him of the truth. However, during the pregnancy, their journey was bumpy, with heated confrontations from Mr. Lewis and his mother. Nonetheless, he did accompany her to some doctor's appointments, showing a glimmer of support.
Ms. Johnson, were you aware that members of your family told Ms. Lewis that there could be others?
I don't know why he would listen to them. The whole time I kept telling Mr. Lewis that it was his baby, but he was still believing one of my family members.
Why would your family members say that about you?
Because they never want to see me happy with anybody.
In a shocking twist, Miss Johnson's ex-boyfriend believed he was the father due to a relative's false information. He reached out to her, and she clarified that she had always maintained that Mr. Lewis was the father. Despite her honesty with Mr. Lewis, the misinformation from her relative led to confusion, further complicating the situation.
My relatives told my ex that he was the father.
Your relatives, but you never personally.
I always told Mr. Lewis that he was.
You told Mr. Lewis that he was, but did you tell your ex that he was as well?
No, I didn't.
The court was trying to understand if there's a possibility that either man could be the father. Ms. Johnson affirms that Mr. Lewis is likely the father, but her ex-boyfriend insists on being involved due to misleading information from her family. The court confronts the conflicting claims and sets out to determine the truth behind the paternity dilemma.
So are you basing it just off of looks? Or let's think about the biology of it all. Let's think about the window of conception. Is there a possibility that either man, take the looks out of it, is it a possibility that either man could be her father?
Well, the possibility is Mr. Lewis. He could be the father.
Emotions run high as Mr. Lewis sees a resemblance between himself and Josiah, while Miss Lewis acknowledges the similarities but holds back emotionally until paternity is determined. Mr. Lewis expresses his strong desire for joint custody and giving Josiah his last name, but Miss Lewis firmly disagrees. The courtroom is on the edge, waiting to see how the situation unfolds and if the truth will be revealed.
So now, Mr. Lewis and Miss Lewis, you submitted these photos to the court, and that's Josiah on the left, and that's Mr. Lewis as a baby on the right.
Yeah.
And when you look at these pictures,
like, I think she kind of resembled me, like she looked like me and my mom.
You too, Miss Lewis?
I see the resemblance, but emotionally, I just couldn't go there.
In a heartwarming paternity court moment, emotions soar as the truth is unveiled, leaving Miss Johnson teary-eyed. With the court's permission, Mr. and Miss Lewis share an emotional meeting with beautiful baby Josiah for the first time, prompting applause from the entire courtroom.
Mr. Lewis, you are Josiah's father.
Can I see my daughter?
How you feel, Miss Johnson?
I feel good.
Feel vindicated?
I feel sad.
Why?
Because he haven't seen his daughter.
My mother was a when she was with my dad, and she slept around, and that's the reason why my mom and my so-called father had broken up.
We decided to include Greg in our mix and try and spice things up.
Broken home, deadbeat daddy, all the right ingredients for a rough childhood. That's exactly what happened to Miss Wisnoski. She was dissatisfied with her parents' behavior and believed her father wasn't her biological father. Let's get some answers for her, shall we?
Ms. Wisnoski, you claim that both of your parents are the reason you grew up in a very unstable home. You say that your mother, Ms. Cortez, was extremely promiscuous and she pushed away your alleged father when you were very young.
It seemed the daughter was pretty much done with the antics of her parents. She was upfront about what she thought about both of them. And it most certainly wasn't a pretty picture that she painted. That has got to hurt.
My mother was a when she was with my dad, and she slept around, and that's the reason why my mom and my so-called father had broken up. And I want to know who my dad is, because I don't know who he is. If this is my dad, or another Jim was my dad. My mom's been with several other Jims in my life, and it's confused me.
Next up, we got to hear what the parents had to say to state their case. It must have been painful to hear such colorful words coming out of their daughter's mouth. Furthermore, the former married couple didn't seem to be too fond of each other as well.
I made mistakes, and yes, I did have an affair, but he also had affairs.
So now, Mr. Wisnoski, can you please explain why you doubt?
I have doubts because while we were together, I was in the military and went ahead, and I don't mind people buying drinks for ladies in bars free and stuff like that.
Things started heating up, and I for one predict a lot of drama in the future. Yup, Ms. Cortez denied the allegations of husband, But not everything. Oh yes, some truth was in there, and we're gonna find out what it was.
You do admit to having infidelity.
Specifically, what happened was on the way home from work one night, we were having an argument. He threw me out of the car. It was late at night.
Wait a minute, you're supposed to be
and
Christian. You should be lying.
I had somebody
I've never
pick me up because they saw me crying and very upset.
Was it a stranger or someone you knew?
I didn't know that person.
Okay.
The troubles in the Wisnoski paradise soon turned to a divorce. I'm guessing the love had run its due course in their lives, and they put an end to it. Good for them. However, the husband had something else in mind along with the divorce.
Don't lie on this, Sharon. You know it. You know it.
I don't
100%.
recall that, Your Honor.
You don't recall the conversation?
You're such a holy roller,
not
girl.
at all.
Don't be lying. You changed your life over to Christ. Change your life
If I
over
don't
to
recall
God.
something, I don't recall something.
So you don't remember this conversation?
No, I did not.
In all that husband and wife drama, an important thing got missed. They were all there for the plaintiff to state her case. And when she got steamrolled by her parents, you go, girl, let them have it. Pressure cooker finally burst.
This right here could be your grandson. Does this matter to you?
Well, you know, the thing being is that, you know, when she was born, Christine
You know,
was born.
you
I
even
turned
missed
around,
him. You missed the birth
I
of
had
him.
such a
Does
big
that
heart
matter to you?
for
Do you even care that he's 4 years old? He laughs kind of like you. When I hear you on the phone, he has your laugh. And then
Yeah,
you sit
well,
there and you're going to
laughs
deny
are
him?
Moving on, a valid question was raised by Miss Wisnoski concerning her father. He abandoned her long ago, and not a peep had been heard from him since then. Why? I mean, that was just the definition of a deadbeat dad. But Mr. Jim wasn't having it.
Thing is that when I left, her mother would always change her phone number for one. The other thing is that I'm not here to be played with. She knows that I am not the father.
How certain are you that you are not Ms. Wisnoski's father?
99 and 99%.
Even though that man had definitely not come out as Father of the Year, he did end up sharing some things that hinted he might have some love for the plaintiff after all. So, hope was still there, I guess. Not so bright, but at least a little.
Christina was a very beautiful baby, extravagant baby. She was so extravagant, I would put her in a baby contest. She was an immaculate
And that's
baby.
why I need you to understand you love this child. You put her in baby contest. She's your beautiful baby girl. And then all of a sudden you disappear on her.
Just when you thought the dude was not all bad, boom, Mr. Jim went and had the audacity to say that about the plaintiff. Seriously? That girl could be your daughter, man. Talk about the lowest of low blows.
She says that you feel like she's after your money.
Not only mine, but my folks, okay? I mean, they got a nice, extravagant, nice motorhome. They got
Okay, but Mr. Wisnoski,
Your father's
Mr.
not even
Wisnoski,
around,
first
he's
of
dead.
all, you really believe this girl is standing here in tears over a motorboat that your mama owns?
Miss Wisnoski had been on one heck of an emotional roller coaster. Her parents disappointed her greatly, and this paternity tout had nagged this family for quite a long time now. Time for some real answers now. Oh, I hope that guy does turn out to be the father.
Mr. Wisnoski, you are her father.
So, what now? What are you gonna do now? Are you gonna come over for Christmas and, you know, try to play makeup or what, you know?
But you can blame your mom for doing this.
This baby daddy was pretty positive that he was the father of little Javier. The only hurdle was the defendant. She was certain that Mr. Kendricks wasn't her guy. However, she had other ulterior motives behind denying paternity.
Me and Greg met each other through he was dating a roommate of mine. And he came over one day. We did end up hitting it off and we was cool. Ended up having sex.
Okay, that's Three's Company, right? Y'all too young to know that show.
So, how did this sordid love affair begin? Well, as it turns out, Miss Sidra knew the potential baby daddy through her roommate. Seems okay so far, right? Well, the question was, in what capacity was the said roommate involved with the plaintiff? Watch for yourselves.
Speaking of Three's Company, when me and the man that I believe is Javier's father, Maurice, was getting rocky, we decided to include Greg in our mix and try and spice things up.
Ooh, mama, they sure spiced things up, like a lot. And this mutually beneficial arrangement went on for quite some time, too. However, both parties were conflicted on the timeline, and it also appeared that Mr. Kendricks was more than helpful.
It happened
off and on for like 10 years.
What?
It's before.
It wasn't 10 years.
It happened like this, Your Honor. I've been knowing her 10 years. After I got her and we became friends, you know, I was still kind of talking to her friend.
Taking friendship to new heights, we got to see next how the potential baby daddy had more than a good rapport going on with mommy. Yup. Not only was he a third in their relationship, but also a confidant, as well as a kind of best friend, too.
So you're saying you did the threesomes, but then you also would go over and sleep with her by yourself?
While he was at work, or, you know, while he was cheating.
Your Honor, that happened one time.
Because I took her
once.
Oh, man. The plaintiff was having all kinds of fun with the baby mama. What in the world was that? He had his fun in threesomes, but also had a separate thing going on with the defendant as well. Though I gotta hand it to him, he was a little respectful towards the cousin at least.
So what are you saying? So when you had the threesomes with your cousin and her, you would wear a condom?
Yeah, for respect for him.
Because that's respect.
Yeah.
So then the night you had sex with her alone, that was unprotected.
Yes, ma'am.
It was.
That was a lot of information to get in so little time. Buckle up for some more now. The whole fun concluded with the pregnancy. Did that shock you? Nope, we saw it a mile away. Now that the cat was out of the bag, the reactions followed.
We talked about it later on.
Afterwards, he called me trying to act like, man, these your babies over here, dog. I'm telling you, when I see you, dog, it's on, man. You got me over here taking care of your babies. Because between both of the babies, like before her first baby was born, that's when the threesome started.
You have an older child with the cousin.
Yes.
Miss Sidra was a busy bee on the weekends, apparently, as they were filled with all sorts of extracurricular activities. Wow! Where does someone get the energy to pull this off? Judge Lake finally asked the question we were all thinking of. Oh, yeah.
Miss Sidra, I just have to stop. Unfortunately, I understand why Mr. Kendricks would probably enjoy it, because men can just be nasty like that.
Yeah, she want both her kids to have the same father, but
and they do.
Why is nobody on the birth certificate then?
About time, the infamous cousin Maurice came out to play. Unfortunately, he couldn't come to the court for these marvelous proceedings. But he did have something to share about this good old arrangement and the result of it.
Last year, Mercedes and I got into it because she thought I was having sex with another woman, which I wasn't. In retaliation, she had sex with my cousin Greg with no rubber. Shortly after, she comes up pregnant. I found out that they had been having sex behind my back for years. Since the dirty mess has come to light, I don't think her son is mine. He looks like Greg.
It was noble of Mr. Kendricks to be willing to step up as a father of little Mariah. But this bunch was one questionable lot with questionable activities. On the bright side, though, Miss Sidra finally ended up with an epiphany. Way to go, woman.
You keep having that little smile, Miss Sidra, and I'm thinking to myself,
because I'm so mad and upset and hurt and betrayed and everything else, I don't know how else to express it.
What I see you're emotional now. What are you really feeling inside?
I wanted everything from Mariah. I wanted her to grow up with a mother, wanted her to grow up with a father.
Well, this was all fun and games till the consequences of their own actions came and bit them in the back. While it was all casual for them and they laughed around, guess who wasn't laughing? Baby Mariah. Let's see what was the fate of that baby girl.
Mr. Pitchford Kendricks, you are not the father. I can see that really disappointed you. You thought you were.
Yeah, Your Honor.
Miss Nelson here was in grave despair. For a long time, she believed one man to be her father, but her birth certificate told another story. And then a Facebook message led her down another different path. The defendant aimed to resolve some of the mysteries surrounding the plaintiff.
Ms. Nelson, you say you grew up believing one man was your father, yet had another man listed on your birth certificate. Then, after you turned 30 years old, a third man, the defendant, suddenly contacted you on Facebook claiming he was your father.
This woman here was having curveballs thrown at her left and right. The plaintiff was led to believe her father was someone who was incarcerated, and she had weekend visitations. Bam! 2 days in New York changed her whole outlook on life.
Do you have a copy of your birth certificate with you?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Ron, let me see that. Father's name listed, Vincent Preston Nelson. And that's not the name of the gentleman you visited in prison.
No, Your Honor.
So this had to be confusing.
Yes, Your Honor. I was hurt. I never knew who he was.
Now that two possible fathers were in the picture, you'd think, all right, not so bad yet. We just have to figure out who amongst the two of them was the real dad. Destiny had another shocking revelation in store for Miss Nelson.
You don't know who I am, but I'm your father. I'm so sorry for all of the years I have missed you growing up. What were you thinking when you get this message?
Your Honor, honestly, I didn't even know what to think because it was like
It's like it's just coming out of nowhere.
Two Christophers were in the plaintiff's life who claimed to have fathered her. Now that was a real head-scratcher. About time, the defendant revealed what information he possessed to untie this knot of paternity, considering the said daughter.
The reason being, I had problems with other people in my life, so I didn't want to use my real full name. So I made up a Facebook page of Christopher Lancaster. I always was looking for my daughter. Always. To me, I feel that she's my daughter. So I always was looking for her.
Well, some of the confusion was sorted, at least, though still a long way to go. Moving on, Mr. Sterling was more than forthcoming on telling the court how his budding love came to be with the plaintiff's mother. The daughter sure was mortified listening to that.
You were there for the birth?
We met in high school. We had sex every day during the summer. Every day. Every day.
Oh my God.
Oh, I bet you didn't see what was coming next. Miss Nelson had 3 possible fathers. We know that by now. One was in prison, one was on the birth certificate, and the last one was standing in the court. Guess who the man on the birth certificate was?
Can this be possible? Because there's the man in prison, there's Vincent Preston Nelson, and then you say you were at the hospital.
Because, ma'am, I am Vincent Preston Nelson. Yes, I am.
Shock after shock after shock, man. For real. This case truly was a thriller in the making with all the right kinds of mystery. Now that Mr. Sterling was in fact Mr. Vincent, it's only fair we got to know how this all came to be.
I was younger then. Excuse my hair, I didn't get a haircut back then.
This is you on this ID card.
Well, when I grew up, I never met my real father. When I met my father when I was 17, he said, "We changing your name to Christopher Sterling Jr." I said, "Of course."
Next up, we got to see the emotional side of the defendant. It was an all-worthy moment. He so clearly wanted to be the father to our plaintiff here. Yet she had a pre-established bond with the other man already.
Mr. Sterling, I see this has you very emotional. What is it you feel? Are you just so upset because she was led to believe something different?
I look like him. I don't look like this man right here.
And you just believe in your heart that's your daughter?
Yes, Your Honor.
And all these years you've been hurting, just missing her?
Yes, Your Honor.
The key player of this mystery drama finally made an appearance in the court. The plaintiff's mother, Mama Nelson, had some things to share. Yep, she'd recognized that, but she had a different story for the prison man, though.
Against my wishes, snuck and went to see this man.
So you never told her that, but Ms. Nelson, you felt like you were led to believe it because he said, "I'm your father."
I'm your father, and your mother me out of your life and said I cannot be a part of your life because I'm in and out of jail.
Mr. Sterling brought a witness to back up his claim. Good for him. His younger daughter testified on his behalf, but her testimony ended up raising certain doubts. Yup, doubts led to Miss Nelson blowing up on the defendant. Guess she had reached her limit of drama.
Why do you have doubt?
I've been told my whole life, but I've never met her, and I feel like, why wasn't it a connect? Why didn't we have a connection? And it's more where I came from. I have 2 other ones. So it's like, were us 2 brought together, period. So it's like, is she my sister? I don't know.
Miss Nelson had been searching 30-some years to find out whom she belonged to. That was a pretty long time to wander around aimlessly in search of a tribe, and then strongly believed he was the real deal. Money was on him. Here, results.
Mr. Sterling, you are her father.
I remember sitting on his lap. He used to race motorcycles, and I'd go to the tracks with him and sit on his bike before every race. He said I was his good luck charm. He told me not to call him anymore because I wasn't his child.
I never knew who my real dad was.
You were always told that it was uncertain.
I've had a father figure throughout the years, and he's watched me grow up and never really knew who my dad was.
Miss Dixon and her mother brought the defendant to court, claiming Mr. Froyo has been denying her paternity since she had been a little girl. The defendant, on the other hand, refused this claim and was pretty positive today's tests would reveal the same.
You say you believe that Mr. Froyo is your father,
yes,
and he has denied you since you were a little girl, even though he signed your birth certificate.
Yes, ma'am.
You are seeking results of a paternity test to prove that he is indeed your biological father.
Next, we got to see the plaintiff pouring her heart out. The woman had been suffering over this paternity doubt, and it's clear as day that this whole situation took a toll on her already deteriorating health. Lord have mercy.
I was diagnosed with cancer. I would like my father to be there. I want to know. I'm 25, I've gone this far. I don't want anything from him. I just want to know. I don't want him to feel sorry for me. He says he's not my dad, but he'll be there for me. I don't need a charity case. You know, if he's not my dad, he's not my dad. But if he is, I'd like him to know, like, I've been through so much.
Although the moment was emotional, that didn't deter the potential baby daddy from speaking his mind. He narrated an incident from the past where he once contacted the mother to take Miss Dixon out for some time, but the mother wasn't having it.
If I could take her out for her birthday and buy her stuff, quote, unquote, over the phone, you're not seeing her.
Oh, no, that is not true. He would not give me a phone number. He wouldn't tell me where he was taking her, how long he was taking her, and I wasn't having that. And there is no Tom Ashley.
Whoa, that's some serious allegation being leveled against Mr. Froyo. I hope that wasn't the case, because otherwise, the defendant was just plain ignorant, still living in the dark ages.
I have an older daughter, I have an older son, and I have a younger daughter.
Boy.
I don't deny anything.
He wanted a boy. He left me in the hospital right after I gave birth and did not come back to that hospital.
Baby daddy had been rejecting the daughter in this court left and right. But, shockingly enough, he had her name tattooed on his arm. What? Why? Now that was $1 million question.
Simple reason is, Your Honor, why does Samantha have Dixon for her last name if I am true her biological father and it's not my last name?
He asked me at the hospital, do not put Froyo on there because it would upset his mother. Don't play that. That's why I gave her Dixon.
That's your story.
And I'm sticking to it.
It had been twice now that something that happened 5 years ago had come up again. I guess it was about time we got to hear what came across all those years ago that made him doubt paternity.
5 years ago, my son and myself were in Florida, and this gentleman came in, which was a friend of his. He goes, Samantha has never been your daughter. I go, what do you mean? My son sat next to me. He says, she's mine, and I'll never go to New York State to prove any different.
Well, I'd like to know who he is, really, because he might be a better dad than you.
Do you see this?
Next up are the various times and instances where the alleged baby daddy denies Miss Dixon. And by her account, it was a lot to take for a single person. Where the daughter still cherished the time they spent together, the guy didn't even acknowledge her presence now.
I called his phone because I always find his number. I have his number now because I've never let go of the memories when I was 5. I've always wanted that dad back because at one time he loved me.
And you remember that?
And I remember sitting on his lap. He used to race motorcycles and I'd go to the tracks with him and sit on his bike before every race. He said I was his good luck charm. He told me not to call him anymore because I wasn't his child.
The absence of a father can have a catastrophic and lasting impact. And Miss Dixon was about to narrate how she firsthand dealt with those impacts that changed her for life. She went down the wrong path, and the rest was history.
I lost my virginity and got pregnant with twins. I called him when I was pregnant with them twins, and he asked me if they were mixed. And I told him they were, and you know what? He told me he didn't respect the fact that I was pregnant. Well, when my twins died January 17th, I called him, and he told me it was meant to happen. He showed up to the funeral because they were dead. That's the only reason why. He was there for a whole 5-10 minutes and left.
The woman poured her heart out. Everyone felt her emotions. But there was one who didn't feel a thing. The cold-hearted jerk of a father. Not only did he appear indifferent and callous, but he also had the nerve to say this next.
I was diagnosed with stage 3 lymphoma. At that time, I had a 1-year-old son and a 2-week-old son. They gave me 3 months to live. I didn't lay down, I fought. I did 2 years of chemo, I went bald. At 19 years old, I had no hair, no support. Now I'm at 22, I had my daughter. Miracle child, they said I couldn't have.
Uh-oh, a witness came to play, and she happened to be Mr. Froyo's daughter. Now, although she was acknowledged by him, still she ended up sharing some shocking information that substantiated the plaintiff's mother's earlier remarks about the guy.
Mr. Prowell, you are her father.
Told you. That was my Ashley.
I'm a man of my word, Samantha. I apologize to you, and I'm wrong for being the way I was, but you know what? Now you know the truth.
Miss Allen was in the court to prove to the defendant that he fathered Miss Baylor. And no matter the nonsense Mr. Child's wife filled his head with, the results would be in her favor.
Miss Allen, you say that after a brief affair with Mr. Childs, you discovered you were pregnant with your daughter, Ms. Baylor. You say Mr. Childs acknowledged paternity until his wife convinced him otherwise. You intend to prove that Mr. Childs is, in fact, your daughter's father. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Upon inquiring about the reason the plaintiff thought that the father was denying paternity, Mommy had only one name as an answer. And that answer didn't sit well with the couple.
His petty wife. She been
excuse me,
doing that for years. She wasn't there when we were sleeping together or nothing. So I don't think she have anything to do with it.
So you're basically blaming his wife?
Yes.
She should blame herself, Your Honor.
What?
Why did it take you 20 years to figure out that you should get a DNA test?
Because I didn't need to go through the drama.
A football night filled with drinks and messing around resulted in a baby. That kid was now being denied paternity, which was a given, as Miss Allen had certain other plans.
Why aren't you telling the truth? You didn't know who the father was.
Well, you knew that from day one.
You were telling that.
You knew that from day one.
That's not what you were saying, though. The rumor that you put out there.
Hold on, I'm going to give both of you a chance to respond.
Both these guys had varied narratives of how the news of pregnancy came to be. Baby mama claimed she told right away. But baby daddy didn't agree with that.
Once I found out, I heard she was pregnant. Hey, are you pregnant? You supposed to be pregnant by me? Oh, I don't know. I don't know if it's yours or not. So I'm like, okay, if you're pregnant and it's mine, let's get a DNA test. We can go ahead and get this out of the way. Have no problem with taking care of her because she would have been my first. I don't see her again for months. Probably longer than that, Your Honor.
So, Ms. Allen, did you invite any other man?
No.
The story we've all been waiting for. How did the wife of the defendant come to be part of it all? Mommy started the story, but soon after, the reins were taken away by her.
I had to go through the drama with Miss Johnson. Up and down the road, she following me.
How can she remember me chasing her up and down the street, but she can't remember who fathered her child? Why am I living in her head rent-free, but she can't remember who fathered her child? Furthermore, Your Honor, he's always been there for our children. So this little song and dance she doing.
The story took an interesting turn. It seemed Miss Allen was not all that truthful. Some key pieces of information were being held out by her. Evidently, that information threatened her claim.
I wasn't even messing with him. This was something that came
Why
about.
would you test someone you aren't messing with?
Because she was fishing. He came out and asked me, and he said, you know, I was messing with your mom around the time. I wanted to get a DNA test with you.
Someone reached out to you, Ms. Baylor, and said, I think I may be your father.
Finally, the real sufferer in this situation, Miss Baylor, was given the stage. About time, if I may say so. For years, the girl believed one man to be her father, but I'm afraid that wasn't the case.
I was about 14 when I first found out my sister's dad wasn't my dad. Just hearing rumors, just going over my grandmother's house in Bowling Green. And that's where basically he is from. And everybody would come to me like, you're my cousin, TJ's your dad. I'm like, I don't know who TJ is. Who is TJ?
Little did the plaintiff know that sharing a few stories with the family would lead to shocking revelations. The kind that had the potential to alter the course of her life forever.
I don't know if he meant to, but when he told me, I just started asking questions. I just wanted to know. I wanted to get to the bottom of it.
Yes, she knew. I told her, sit down and told her the whole story.
Yeah, she told me after. She didn't tell me before, but she told me after the fact when my stepdad did say that.
I know, honey.
The defendant appeared sincere and raised all the right questions. It seemed a lot of precious time was lost in these 2 decades that could have been saved had they resolved these doubts earlier.
If I'm such a bad person, go get child support. When we went to child support, I would have got a DNA test. And this would have been taken care of years ago. I've been going on years, Your Honor, with people saying, oh, you know Shah's your daughter. Oh, you know Shah's your daughter. I don't want people looking at me like, oh, you're a deadbeat dad.
One paternity doubt caused a lot of bad blood in all these relationships. And why wouldn't it? When you mess around without any protective measures and don't keep track of the people, kids like Miss Baylor get destroyed in the process.
I wasn't even the only one he was messing with. He was messing with my cousins and all that stuff. So that's why I just went on about my business.
What does that have to do with the child at hand, Your Honor?
Yeah, it doesn't, but at the same time.
That's what I'm saying. I've been going through, Your Honor. She's not concerned about her. She's concerned about her.
Time for some real evidence. The defendant came prepared. Up until now, it was all just he said, she said battle being commenced. But the paternity court operated on concrete and irrefutable proof.
All my kids look just like, I'm not saying that, that doesn't mean she's not my child. It's just that I feel I have strong genes. So,
So you're saying all of your children,
Yes,
all of your other children, have been born with a sick finger.
Yes, ma'am, just like myself.
That's a physical characteristic you share with them.
Yes, ma'am.
That about sums it up. The testimonies were heard, the evidence was looked at, and all that was left to go through was the contents of the DNA results. Do I even have to say it this time? Let's get on with it.
Mr. Childs, you are not the father. I'm very sorry, Miss Baylor.
It's okay, Your Honor. At the same time.
It's okay, honey. It's okay.
In a riveting change of pattern, a man brought the defendant to court claiming Miss Sierra was his child, but it was the baby mama who believed otherwise. She further claimed there could be other possibilities.
You filed your case because you claim you've been robbed as a father. You are desperate to prove to the defendant that you fathered her 19-year-old daughter, Sierra Sloan, and once you do, you want to make up for lost time. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
It took 3 words for Miss Grider to colorfully describe her teenage life. Wowza! Don't know whether to be impressed at her candor or just cringe. She knew the motto of young life and followed it to the fullest. And the courtroom had a hearty laugh over this.
Explain to the court why you are so certain.
Because I was 19, I was young, dumb, and full of eggs, and I was doing me.
Young, dumb, and full of eggs and doing me. I don't think I've ever heard it explained like that.
This mommy was persistent that the plaintiff wasn't the father. Given the situation, she obviously had another possibility. But hold on. Wait till you hear how many guys she was actually involved with at that time.
So how many guys were you with during the window of time your daughter was conceived?
4.
4 different guys. And Mr. Wheat is one of them.
Yes.
How is it you were with these guys?
One of them was my boyfriend. He was living with me at the time, and he went away.
Baby mama dropped the pregnancy bomb on all the potential guys. Yeah, kudos to them all. At the time of delivery, however, Miss Grider only had the second potential baby daddy with her. But then why did Mr. Wheat claim he was robbed of the baby? Let's hear him out.
Did she even tell you she was going into labor?
She called me that day and told me, and I told her I'll come up there in a little bit, okay? Well, my family went up there. I called her back, said, hey, I'm on my way. She told me not to bother. So I just...
Oh, now I get where the robbery's coming.
Well, the plaintiff didn't get to see the baby, but his family was there and they saw her. So it wasn't like he wasn't present there at all. He accounted for his presence through his family. Good for him.
When they came back to my house, all of them said, congratulations, you're a dad. All right, well, I didn't believe them. My mom came in and asked me if I wanted to see what my daughter looked like. Well, she handed me a baby picture of me. I was born. And she goes, there you go.
Wow.
All the confusion and the possibilities aside, Miss Sierra was truly the victim, and it showed how much all of this devastated her, and rightly so. If your hearts don't melt for the poor girl, all you people are made of stone, man.
What are you feeling in this moment? Can you tell the court?
Upset that I never knew who my real dad was.
And when you say you never knew?
Never.
You were always told that it was uncertain?
I've had a father figure throughout the years, and he's watched me grow up and never really knew who my dad was.
Oh, okay.
In all this paternity chaos, a wholesome moment ended up taking place. While it was beautiful for one party and they cherished it, the plaintiff ended up being heartbroken over it.
So, Mr. Weed, I see your emotion here. I see your face, because as I talk about all of these memories and naming her and all of this, this is now, it's reinforcing that feeling that you feel like you've missed out.
Yes, Your Honor.
Was someone cutting onions? It didn't happen often here that 2 potential baby daddies want to end up being the biological father of the child in question, but that was the case here.
How does it feel to hear that, Sierra? That he wants to get to know you and have a relationship with you and be a dad to you?
It feels good, but I'm just trying to figure it out. If he is my dad, it's just a lot to deal with. But it would be nice if he was, or if Mac was still. I would like to get to know him better too.
All right, I've got my fingers crossed. Let's hope Miss Sierra ends up with a biological father amongst these 2. all seemed great. Now, the only things left to check were the DNA results. So, let's get right to them.
You are not the father.
I still love her no matter what.
We're all still a happy family. It's just hurting her because she loves him, but she thought there could be a possibility.
Of course she did.